Welcome, Fiona. Thanks for joining me one more time. So last week, you came and we were talking about mind yourself, or at least that's what I said. I was talking about our minds and just how so much of our life externally, what we do and the actions that we take and directions we go are super affected by what's going on inside of us. And I know you have a heart for people, that they would not suffer or struggle in ways that they don't need to. And so I could go a number of different ways, but how would you like to start us off? What would you like to share with us?
I think just to reiterate again, I think to highlight the importance of this topic that you're choosing to talk about at the moment. That scripture in Proverbs, as a man thinks in his heart, so he is, really highlights that we really are our thought life. Our thought life is the root of really all behavior, all feeling, all actions come from our thoughts. They start as thoughts and we act as a consequence of our thoughts, and we have emotions. We actually feel things as a consequence of something we're thinking, not independent of thinking. It's the way I kind of think of it is like, if you lined up a big, some of those YouTube videos where they line up a big trail of dominoes and then they push the first domino and then it knocks all these other dominoes. The first domino is our thought life. That's the first, what we think, and everything else follows. So it's a really important topic, and a cause of so much unnecessary suffering as well. So I think this is a great thing to be thinking about, and hopefully people will really experience breakthrough during this season while we're talking about it. Yeah.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
What made you so interested in this topic? Was it an area that you struggled with and then got clarity on? What started you down that road?
That's a good question. I mean, I can remember a distinct moment, actually, just before I made that trip to New Zealand that we were talking about last week, where I went on a missions trip, just thinking, I was thinking the same thoughts over and over again. And there was a deep unrest deep down inside me. And there were lots of questions in my mind. And I remember thinking at that time, I am suffering as a consequence of things I'm thinking. What's wrong with my thinking? And how can I change it? And I think so many things that I've done in my life since then have been to try and answer that question. But then seeing the change in my life when some of those questions did get answered and some of those thought patterns did start to change. And then seeing that happen in others, like I was, we were talking about last week that I kind of almost randomly happened to start helping out in an addiction center, having been an architect before, but seeing, to me, it was just, there was so much meaning attached to, and I've always also loved philosophy and apologetics and all things to do with mind. So I suppose it's just been it's actually been a very unnatural and a very natural inclination at the same time. So yes, part of my personal story, and then those I've been in contact with.
Okay, good, very good. So so it's such an important topic, and some of us are really interested in the details, and some of us just like the big picture and action oriented and let's do it. And so if you are real interested in philosophy and different stuff, you're probably interested in more of the details and really
Mhm.
going deeper and uncovering things. And
I love, yeah, I really do love sitting with a person and thinking something through, like following those rabbit trails or following that line of dominoes to really see where it came from. I really enjoy that. I love staying with something to get to the root of it.
so last time we talked about some of the challenges and some of the, as well, this season, right? This unusual
Mm.
season that is going to change because, life is seasons. But this is a unique season and we want to make the most of it. You said it's kind of an opportunity for growth, which is a
Mhm.
real positive way of looking at things. And so maybe you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, on um, looking at maybe the challenges that we face or the things that we struggle with as an opportunity.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I suppose part of the opportunity, a large part of the opportunity has arisen because so much of what normally distracts us has been moved to the side. And then also there's a factor in disaster or in crisis that pushes us right up against the wall of our own humanity, of our own limit, our own limits, our own limitedness, that we're mortal, that we won't be here forever. And there's something about crisis that forces us to really look inward. And that's we individually and we as a society. But one of the opportunities, I suppose, if you take it, is right now, I suppose I could give an example. And in the first week of lockdown, I found myself losing it with my kids in ways that I normally don't. I would just suddenly be yelling at them because they asked for a rice cake, you know? So the response was totally out of proportion with the cause. And that to me was a flag. And I think lots of people might be experiencing flags in their lives right now. Um, that was a flag that I had to go back and realize, because I have generally my philosophy of parenting my kids at such a young age. I consider that I'm responsible. If they're misbehaving, it's because of something I'm doing, because we know that there's sin in them, but what's going on with me? Because most of the time, if I want to take my temperature, I can look at how my kids are behaving. And I think a lot of us could look at relationships around us that way. You want to know how you're doing, look in the mirror, because the people around you are a mirror. So that was something that I had to take back to my journaling time, that I had to take back to my quiet time, take back to the Lord. And that was the first moment for me of going, well, that's uncomfortable. I wasn't who I wanted to be in that situation. But what was that touching off of in me that sent me into crisis or into panic or that stretched my patience past its limit? What's not okay about me? Okay, let's trace that back, you know. Um, so that was actually an opportunity to root out something in the old structure and to go, what needs to be there in its place. And I think maybe we'll take a wander down the direction of relationships and all, because I think last week we left off on the help for interpersonal relationships. So
Yeah, I think just as a thought as well, like I tend to, well, at least I think I do. I don't always think about what other people are feeling so much. I think about what I'm feeling and what I'm going through. And even last week's, I think you shared with me a bit about allowing yourself to feel stuff and um, and then maybe allowing others to feel stuff.
yeah.
And so anyway, that was just a thought. I think that's pretty
Yeah.
important because sometimes we just want to move on, just deal with it and go, let's, get over it.
Yeah.
But it seems like you kind of talk a little bit about allowing yourself to have some of these feelings and not kind of condemn yourself or just kind of gloss over that stuff. But actually, when you allow yourself to feel it, then you'll actually do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's the first step to it changing is to just notice that it's there.
Okay.
If you notice that it's there, but you reject it or you don't accept it, you say, no, I'm not impatient. No, I'm not anxious right now. No, I'm not in fear. Then you're not going to be able to deal with it. There's going to be no growth until you can look at the thing and say, that's what the problem is. That is the first step. So there's a few tips that I had for people who are maybe in interesting relational situations right now, and that's one of them. The first step is just noticing what's going on. But I just thought it was worth mentioning because it just popped into my head while you were talking there. You're talking about mind yourself. You're talking about minding your mental health. To me, that's on one side of the equation, mind yourself, and on the other side of the equation is mind your relationships. And there's an equal sign in the middle. There's these two things, minding yourself and minding your relationships, and they're indistinguishable. And in so many ways, so much research has been done now about the source of so many addictions are not actually societal or poverty or even so much opportunity or physiological. It's to do with relationships, and so much of our suffering is to do with relationships. And people are in really different relational situations now than they would normally be. I mean, there's people locked down completely alone, but not necessarily lonely. Then there's people locked down with people and they do feel lonely even though they're with people. Then there's people who are super busy. They're healthcare workers, as people with kids. So we talked a bit about last week all these different situations that people are in right now, and in all of those relational issues there are opportunities for growth if we decide to take them. And there's many creative ways, opportunities also. But I think that's really important to just say that the first step is just to notice, to take the time to notice, to not rush past this season and not have taken those opportunities, or to numb the feelings, like we were saying, or to numb the relationships. So somebody, you might be in a situation with a spouse or a sibling, parent-child relationship, any sort of relationship right now where the lockdown has highlighted a problem that that you were able to distract from before, but now it's just really obvious. So the first thing is to notice it, to take the time. And then if you're in a caring relationship with that person and you want to go there, well, take the time to ask, so on a daily basis, I'm trying to ask myself, how am I? On a scale of 1 to 10, how's my anxiety? How's my mood? I'm trying to check in with myself. Might be a good idea to check in with those around you. Maybe using a scale might be an easy way to do it, like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst you've ever felt, 1 being the best you've ever felt. Where are you today? How's your energy? How's your mood? Just give me a number so I can gauge. If you're going to spend all day in a house together, you're trying to work, you're trying to look after kids, maybe you're a parent and a sibling and you're all these things under one roof at the same time. Maybe negotiating some of these things is just checking in, first of all, and noticing if there are outbursts, if there's unusual behavior, asking what's going on there. So the next thing is then generating curiosity and investigating, having an investigative attitude, asking, and not just asking at a surface level, but being willing to go a bit deeper. This can be for the person sitting right next to you, or it might be for your grandmother on the other side of the planet that you're calling via Skype. I think during this season, there's the opportunity to have love and compassion for people through asking that deeper question. What are you finding difficult about lockdown? What do you miss about being able to go out to the shops? What do you look forward to after this time? What are some things that I could help you with? Just going a little bit deeper and hearing it. And then, of course, the next step is then just accepting, that your spouse is where they are today, that your grandmother is feeling what she's feeling today, or that your child is in a place of anger But when you get to ask, then you need to accept the answer, not try to change it or judge it, because that is where they are. And you telling them that they should feel differently is not going to change it anyway. There's some first steps. Yeah, but I think curiosity is a good form of compassion right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's very good. So it's notice, it's
Notice.
being curious, and asking good questions, not just yes or no questions. I suppose you gave us some good ones, like, what are you missing about going to the store, or what are those things making you feel? And then
validating. So saying back to them,
telling them that you accept them, you love them wherever they're at. Yeah.
Sometimes just being able to say to somebody, I hear you, like, you're angry because I have to do your shopping for you because you're an at-risk group and you can't leave your house. Like, I can understand, Or you're feeling really pessimistic today because you've lost your job and you don't know where your income. Yeah, that makes sense. I can understand. So just saying back to them, yeah, I hear you. Like, that makes sense that you feel that way. Just validating that is really powerful for people.
Yeah, super good.
Yeah. But I suppose it's also worth mentioning that they're very compassionate. So actually, those two lists that you would do for other people, you could almost exactly the same list that you're going to do for yourself. Noticing yourself, asking yourself those questions.
Nice to be accepting yourself, isn't it? Allow yourself to feel.
And validating, well, it makes sense that you wanted to eat 3 packets of biscuits last night because you're missing going out with your friend.
Yeah.
Just understanding and just accepting.
It's really good stuff, Fiona.
Yeah. I suppose it's also just worth mentioning, though, that there are people in situations right now where tensions are running really high in some households. And I don't know if you've ever heard the expression, if you didn't bring it to Paris, you won't find it in Paris. Do you ever hear that expression? So Paris is called a city of romance, and so many people go there looking for romance. But of course, if you didn't bring romance with you, if you didn't bring love with you, you're not going to find it in Paris. And on the flip side, I would say, if you didn't bring it to lockdown, it wouldn't be in lockdown with you right now. So if you're experiencing things right now, they came with you. So people who brought an addiction with them into lockdown, that addiction came with them. It was already there. People who had an anger issue, or people who had mental health problems, it's come with us into this situation. This situation is just highlighting something that was there all along. But for people who might be in a situation where, my husband is from Poland, and he was telling me this week that there's a 50% increase in reported rates of domestic violence in Poland since the lockdown happened. So there's going to be some people in really tricky relational situations right now. And I just think it's really important. I will use any platform or moment or possibility to tell people, if you're in a situation like that, or even if you have an inkling of a whiff of a thought that what's going on is not okay, that you should get help and that you should let people know. There's helplines that Noel's put up on the Facebook page before, and there's links that he's going to put the link for. So if you're in a relational situation that you have an inkling isn't okay, make a phone call. You can ring anonymously, you can ring at the church, there's people there. And that goes for children as well. If you have an idea that there's children at risk during this time of neglect or abuse, this time is not an excuse to make those kind of things okay. Even though it's a really challenging time for lots of us, doesn't mean that any of those things are okay. And there is help out there. So make sure to take those steps.
Yeah, we'll put the links on the down below for those helplines that we have in the description of the YouTube video. And last week also, Fiona, you mentioned that you'd be willing to connect with people that you basically have a few slots open during this time that you'd like to make available to people if they'd like to have a conversation with you. And
Yeah.
so if you are somebody that's interested in talking with Fiona, maybe she brought up something that you'd like to ask her more about,
Mhm.
then just email us at the church, info@lifechurch.ie, and then we can put you in contact with Fiona, no problem, very simply. Or you can contact, I know a lot of that will be watching this have contact with you already and know you, so you can just contact her directly. And
Please do.
last of all, you were telling me, which I think is wonderful, that you would like to do an online group. There's my son. You were like to do an online group to go deeper into our thinking. You want to talk about that just for a minute? Tell them what you're thinking.
Yeah, so I think this is such a great subject that we're talking about in church right now, and I loved what you shared on Sunday morning. But I'm a really practical, detail-oriented person, as you said, and I've been thinking about all the practical ways that I know that we can renew our mind and the steps that we need to take. But often that happens in the context of support. So I actually myself was thinking of starting the Switch on Your Brain 21-day brain detox challenge. And I thought to myself, well, maybe there are a few people who would like to go through that with me and be a little support group to me, and I could be a little support group to them. So if there's anybody out there interested, part of Life Church or not yet part of Life Church, or on the other side of the world, wherever you are, if you can get on the same page as us time zone wise, and if you have an internet connection and can join in a Zoom life group, we'd love to have you. And yeah, let's do a life group together and see what we can change in our brains.
That's brilliant. Love it. So what we'll do is I'm going to put a link again for if you're interested in being a part of this group that's going to switch on your brain with Fiona, and it's a Zoom group. So it doesn't matter where you're at. Like you said, you can be in Antarctica or whatever time zone, and as long as you can stay awake for it. And connect with that. So there'll be a link in the YouTube video. It'll be also, you can just type in lifechurch.ie/life groups. And that is great. I think we should finish now. Really appreciate it, Fiona. It was some
Hey, maybe
really
I could
good
throw
stuff.
out one more thing there, Noel. Would that be okay?
Yes.
One thing I had just thought to myself I really want to get to say to people is there's lots of crazy things happening in the world right now, but that doesn't mean that you can't have fun and you can't experience pleasure and joy and happiness. And so a great antidote to stress and mental anguish is fun and play and movement. And I would prescribe to anybody 30 minutes of dancing a day to lift their mood, and just to realize that even though physically you're in one place, in your imagination you are unlimited. My family went to Spain for dinner the other evening. We had some Mexican food and we put on Spanish guitar, and we pretended that we were sitting out in the courtyard of some beautiful Spanish city. And I hear my kids all day long. They travel the world in their play. And just because we're grown up, it doesn't mean that we can't right now as well. So I just think that's a great facility also of our mind and our thoughts that we can use, and it can have such a good effect. So anyway, that was my last.
Absolutely. Go onto the porch, light a couple candles, and have a meal outside. Beautiful weather here in Port Leash in the Midlands. All right. Well, thank you, Fiona. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Noel.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.